I watched my sister Emma get slapped across the face on live television while I sat alone in my apartment eating leftover pizza. The wedding footage had gone viral within hours, showing her new husband Marcus striking her during their first dance when she accidentally stepped on his foot. My family had uninvited me 3 weeks earlier, claiming I would make things awkward since I had dated Marcus briefly in college. They said Emma deserved her perfect day without drama. Now, millions of strangers witnessed what should have been private family shame. The phone call that changed everything came on a Tuesday evening in September. I was washing dishes in my small Denver apartment after a 12-hour shift at Children's Hospital when my mother's voice crackled through the speaker. "Brittany, honey, we need to talk about the wedding." My hands stilled on the ceramic plate I'd been scrubbing. Something in Susan's tone made my stomach clench with dread. The wedding was Emma's big day 3 weeks away, and I'd already bought my bridesmaid dress in the pale lavender she'd chosen. "What about it, Mom?" "Well, Emma's been thinking and she's worried about having you there. You know, because of your history with Marcus." History. That's what they were calling 6 months of casual dating during sophomore year at University of Colorado. Marcus and I had met in American literature class, bonded over our shared love of hiking, and dated from October through March, before realizing we worked better as friends. No drama, no heartbreak, just two young people who discovered their connection was platonic rather than romantic. "Mom, that was 6 years ago. We're adults now." "I know, sweetie, but Emma's already stressed about everything being perfect. She doesn't want any awkwardness on her special day." My father Robert's voice joined the conversation from the background. "Your sister deserves this, Brittany. She's been planning this wedding for 2 years. Let her have her moment without complications." Complications. That's what I'd become in my own family. "So you're uninviting me from my sister's wedding?" "We're asking you to step aside for Emma's happiness. You'll understand when you get married someday." The casual cruelty of that statement hit me like ice water. I'd been the one to introduce Emma to Marcus at a campus coffee shop 2 years ago. She'd just broken up with her high school boyfriend Derek and was crying over a chemistry textbook when I brought Marcus over to cheer her up. I'd felt genuinely happy watching them connect, seeing Emma's face light up for the first time in weeks. "Does Emma know you're calling me?" "This was her idea, honey. She specifically asked us to talk to you." My younger brother Tyler grabbed the phone, then his voice tight with discomfort. "Brittany, I tried to talk them out of this, but they won't listen." "It's okay, Tyler. I don't want to cause problems." But it wasn't okay. Something felt fundamentally wrong about the entire situation. Emma and I had always been close despite our 3-year age gap. She was the artistic dreamer while I was the practical caregiver, but we'd supported each other through everything. When I'd graduated nursing school, Emma had thrown me a surprise party. When she'd struggled to find steady work after college, I'd helped her with rent money without making her feel ashamed. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen staring at the refrigerator photo of Emma and me at last year's family barbecue. We looked happy arms around each other, genuine smiles. When had everything changed? Tyler called me back an hour later, speaking in hushed tones from his college dorm room. "I recorded something you need to hear." The audio was muffled but clear enough to understand. Marcus's voice smooth and persuasive, talking to Emma in what sounded like their shared apartment. "Your sister still has feelings for me, Em. I can see it every time we're all together. The way she looks at me, the way she tries to insert herself into our conversations." "Brittany's not like that," Emma protested weakly. "You're too trusting. She's jealous that you got the guy she couldn't keep. Having her at our wedding would be a constant reminder that I chose you over her. Do you want that hanging over the most important day of our lives?" I never thought about it that way. "Emma, baby, you're the successful one now. You're getting married, starting a real life. Brittany's still single, still living in that tiny apartment, still working the same job she had in college. She's probably bitter about how well things are going for you. The manipulation was so subtle, so expertly crafted that I felt sick listening to it. Marcus was rewriting history, turning my contentment with my nursing career and small apartment into failures, my happiness for Emma's engagement into jealousy. Maybe you're right. Emma's voice was smaller, now uncertain. I'm just looking out for us, sweetheart. Your family agrees. They can see what I see. Tyler's voice came back on the line. He's been working on her for months, Brittany. Every family dinner, every conversation. He keeps telling her you're trying to sabotage their relationship. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I thought Emma would see through it. I thought she knew you better than that. But Marcus had found Emma's weak spot. She'd always struggled with feeling like the less accomplished sister. While I'd graduated summa cum laude and immediately found my calling in pediatric nursing, Emma had bounced between part-time retail jobs and struggled to define her path. Marcus's construction family money and his attention had given her a sense of security and worth she'd never found on her own. Now I understood why Marcus had orchestrated my exclusion. It wasn't about protecting Emma's feelings. It was about removing the one person who might recognize what he truly was. I made my decision that night. I would respect my family's wishes and stay away from the wedding, but I wouldn't stop watching out for my sister. Something about Marcus had always felt off even during our brief relationship. He'd been charming and attentive, but there had been moments when his mask slipped. The way he'd gripped my wrist too tightly when he was upset. The cold look in his eyes when he thought no one was watching. The subtle put-downs disguised as jokes. I'd attributed those moments to incompatibility back then. Now I wondered if I'd simply seen the real Marcus before he'd learned to hide himself better. Saturday morning dawned crisp and clear, perfect Colorado autumn weather for an outdoor wedding at the Denver Botanic Gardens. I woke up in my apartment knowing that in a few hours, Emma would be walking down an aisle I was banned from witnessing. Instead of getting ready in a lavender bridesmaid dress, I pulled on hiking boots and drove to Rocky Mountain National Park. The mountain trails offered solitude and clarity I desperately needed. Pine trees stretched toward cloudless blue sky, while golden aspen leaves crunched beneath my feet. I'd hiked these same paths countless times with Emma when we were younger, sharing secrets and dreams while our parents argued at home about money and disappointment. My phone buzzed constantly with updates from family friends who didn't know about my exclusion. Martha Reynolds, our neighbor for 20 years, sent cheerful photos from the ceremony preparation. Emma looks absolutely radiant. The flowers are gorgeous. The images showed Emma in her flowing ivory dress hair swept into an elegant updo holding a bouquet of white roses and baby's breath. She looked beautiful but somehow fragile, like a porcelain doll positioned carefully for display. I studied her smile in the photos. Something seemed forced about her expression, a tightness around her eyes that I recognized from childhood when she was trying to hide pain or fear. As the ceremony began, Instagram stories flooded my feed from wedding guests. The venue looked spectacular with fairy lights strung through trees and rows of white chairs facing an arch covered in climbing roses. Emma appeared to float down the aisle on Robert's arm while a string quartet played canon in D. But I found myself focusing on details others might miss. In one video clip, Marcus gripped Emma's hand too tightly during their vows, his knuckles white with pressure. When she tried to adjust her grip, he didn't let go. In another photo, Emma's smile looked strained, and I noticed what appeared to be concealer covering a bruise on her left wrist. The realization hit me like altitude sickness. Emma had been wearing long sleeves to every family gathering for months, even during the heat wave in August when temperatures reached the high 90s. At the time, I'd assumed she was being modest or fashionable. Now I wondered what she'd been hiding underneath those flowing fabrics. My college friend Madison sent a private message that made my blood run cold. "Brittany, I'm worried about Emma. Marcus got really aggressive at the bachelor party last week when some guys were talking to her at the engagement party. He cornered her and was gripping her arm while whispering something harsh in her ear." She looked scared. Madison included a photo she'd taken discreetly. Marcus had Emma pressed against a wall, his face inches from hers, his hand clamped around her upper arm. Emma's expression was pure fear, masked by a fake smile for anyone watching from a distance. I wanted to intervene, but Emma caught my eye and shook her head slightly like she was warning me not to make things worse. The pieces began falling into place with horrible clarity. Emma's recent weight loss that everyone attributed to pre-wedding stress. Her nervous habit of touching her neck when Marcus was around. The way she'd stopped talking about her own opinions and started prefacing everything with "Marcus thinks" or "Marcus says." Madison's next message destroyed any remaining doubt. At the rehearsal dinner last night, Marcus pulled Emma aside when she laughed too loudly at Tyler's joke. He was squeezing her arm and whispering something that made her face go pale. When they came back to the table, Emma barely spoke for the rest of the evening. I remembered Tyler mentioning that Emma seemed off lately, but we'd all attributed her changes to wedding planning pressure. Now I realized we'd been witnessing the gradual erosion of my sister's spirit by a master manipulator who knew exactly how to break someone down while maintaining his public image as a devoted fiancé. Scrolling through my old phone, I discovered something that made me stop breathing entirely. Buried in deleted text messages was a conversation from 2 months ago that I'd somehow missed. "Emma, Brittany, I need to talk to someone. Marcus scares me sometimes, but I don't know if I'm overreacting. Emma, can you call me when you get this? I don't want to tell Mom and Dad because they're so excited about the wedding. Emma, please don't say anything to anyone. I just need to know if I'm being crazy." The timestamps showed she'd sent those messages at 2 a.m, then deleted them before I woke up. Marcus must have convinced her to remove them, probably telling her she was being dramatic or paranoid. My sister had been reaching out for help and I'd missed it completely. The weight of realization crushed down on me as I stood alone on a mountain trail while my sister married her abuser. Emma hadn't wanted me excluded from the wedding to avoid awkwardness. She'd wanted me there for protection, but Marcus had successfully isolated her from the one person who might have seen through his facade and given her strength to escape. I started running down the trail toward my car, my hiking boots slipping on loose gravel as panic overtook me. The wedding reception would be starting soon, and Emma would be trapped in a celebration of the worst decision of her life, while everyone around her clapped and cheered. I had to get home. I had to find a way to reach her before it was too late. I burst through my apartment door as the sun was setting, my heart still racing from the desperate drive down from the mountains. My phone had been buzzing nonstop during the last 30 minutes, but I'd been too focused on navigating the winding highway to check the messages. The notifications hit me like an avalanche. 17 missed calls from Tyler, 43 text messages, Instagram tags flooding my screen, Facebook notifications spinning out of control. The first video auto-played before I could even process what I was seeing. Emma and Marcus stood in the center of a beautifully decorated ballroom at the Brown Palace Hotel, surrounded by 200 guests in formal attire. Golden light from crystal chandeliers cast everything in a warm, romantic glow. The opening notes of Etta James's "At Last" filled the air as they began their first dance as husband and wife. Emma looked ethereal in her flowing gown, her hair now loosened into romantic waves cascading over bare shoulders. She was smiling, actually smiling, as they swayed together in perfect rhythm. For a moment, it looked like every fairy tale wedding dream come true. Then Emma stepped slightly sideways, her heel catching the hem of her dress, causing her to stumble gently onto Marcus's polished black dress shoe. What happened next will be burned into my memory forever. Marcus's face transformed instantly from loving Groom to something dark and terrifying. His left hand gripped Emma's waist, while his right hand came up and delivered a sharp, vicious slap across her cheek that echoed through the suddenly silent ballroom. The sound was captured perfectly by multiple phones recording the romantic moment. Emma stumbled backward, her hand flying to her reddening cheek, tears instantly flooding her eyes. Her bouquet fell to the floor, white roses scattering across polished marble. "You clumsy idiot," Marcus hissed, his voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence. "Can't you do anything right?" The video showed 200 wedding guests frozen in shock champagne glasses, halfway to lips forks suspended over dinner plates. Children stared with wide eyes, while elderly relatives covered their mouths in horror. The string quartet continued playing for several more bars before trailing off into confused silence. Emma stood in the center of it all, humiliated and trembling, her perfect wedding day shattered in front of everyone she'd ever known. Then the chaos began. Guests pulled out phones, some rushing forward to help Emma, while others backed away in uncomfortable confusion. Marcus seemed to realize what he'd done, reaching for Emma with fake concern, but she flinched away from his touch. The video ended, but dozens more had already been uploaded from different angles. Close-ups of Emma's shocked face, wide shots showing the entire ballroom's reaction. Audio recordings capturing every word of Marcus's verbal assault. Within an hour, the hashtags had started trending. Tyler's panicked voice came through my phone speakers as I called him back. "Brittany, thank God. It's everywhere. The video is on every social media platform. Local news stations are picking it up. Emma locked herself in the bridal suite and won't come out." "Where is Marcus?" "His groomsmen took him to the bar downstairs. He's been drinking and telling anyone who'll listen that Emma embarrassed him and deserved what she got." My hand shook as I scrolled through hundreds of comments from strangers expressing outrage and concern for my sister. People were sharing the video faster than it could be taken down, turning Emma's humiliation into a global conversation about domestic violence. The Denver Post had already published an online article with the headline, "Local Wedding Turns Violent as Groom Assaults Bride During First Dance." CNN was running a segment about public domestic abuse incidents. The video had been viewed over 1 million times in less than 2 hours. I called Emma's phone, but Robert answered instead. "Brittany, don't call here. Emma's resting and doesn't need any more stress." "Dad, I saw what happened. Emma needs help, not rest." "What Emma needs is family support, not judgment. This is between her and Marcus. They'll work it out." The casual dismissal in his voice made me want to scream. "Dad, he hit her in front of 200 people. On their wedding day. What do you think happens when no one's watching?" Marcus has been under a lot of pressure with the wedding planning. Sometimes people make mistakes when they're stressed. Hitting your wife isn't a mistake. It's assault. Don't be so dramatic, Brittany. Marriage requires forgiveness and compromise. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. My father was defending Emma's abuser while she hid in a hotel room, traumatized and alone. My mother's voice was even worse when I called her directly. "Brittany, honey, we know this looks bad, but Marcus is a good man who lost his temper for one moment. Emma knows he didn't mean it." "Mom, how can you say that you watched him humiliate her in front of everyone?" "These things happen in marriages, sweetheart. Your father and I have had our rough moments too. The important thing is that Emma doesn't throw away her future over one incident." One incident, Mom, this is domestic violence. Don't use those words. Marcus comes from a good family. His father's construction business could really help our family financially. Emma knows how much this wedding cost us. She's not going to throw that away because of one little fight. The conversation revealed everything I needed to know about why my family had enabled this marriage. They'd known about Marcus's temper and chosen to ignore it because of money and social status. Emma's safety meant less to them than their financial security and reputation in the community. But the most devastating revelation came from Tyler. Brittany, there's something else. Mom and Dad paid for anger management sessions for Marcus 6 months ago after he punched a hole in their dining room wall during Easter dinner. Emma begged them not to tell anyone. They knew he was violent and still let this wedding happen. Worse than that, they convinced Emma that marriage would calm him down. They told her that men settle down once they have wives to care for them. I felt physically sick. My family had sacrificed my sister to a man they knew was dangerous because they valued money and appearances more than her well-being. Emma hadn't just been isolated from me. She'd been isolated from reality by people who should have protected her. The viral video wasn't just documenting one moment of abuse. It was exposing a family conspiracy that had delivered Emma into the hands of a predator while convincing her she had no choice but to accept it. As I watched news coverage showing protesters gathering outside the Brown Palace Hotel with signs reading, "Emma deserves better," and "domestic violence is never okay," I realized that strangers cared more about my sister's safety than her own family did. That's when I knew I had to act. Family loyalty be damned. I drove to my parents' house in suburban Littleton with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. The modest ranch home where Emma and I had grown up looked the same as always, with Robert's perfectly manicured lawn and Susan's seasonal flower arrangements, but everything felt different now. The white picket fence and cheerful yellow shutters seemed like props in a stage play designed to hide the rot underneath. Cars filled the driveway and street in front of the house. Tyler's beat-up Honda sat next to a sleek black Mercedes I didn't recognize. Through the living room windows, I could see several people moving around, their voices carrying into the night air. The front door opened before I could knock. Robert stood there looking haggard, his usually perfect hair disheveled and his dress shirt wrinkled. "Brittany, this isn't a good time." "When would be a good time to discuss my sister being assaulted on camera, Dad?" He stepped aside reluctantly, and I walked into chaos. The living room was filled with strangers in expensive suits, all talking rapidly into phones. Susan sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open, frantically deleting comments on Facebook posts. Tyler paced near the fireplace, his face flushed with anger. A polished woman in a navy blazer approached me with an extended hand. "Ms. Thompson, I'm Jennifer Walsh, Crisis Management Consultant. Your family has retained my services to help control the narrative surrounding tonight's unfortunate incident." "Unfortunate incident? You mean my sister being publicly abused by her husband?" Jennifer's smile never wavered. Social media can amplify minor domestic disputes into major public relations disasters. We're working to minimize the long-term damage to everyone involved. The long-term damage to Marcus, you mean? To the entire family, including Emma. This kind of negative attention can follow someone for years. We're focused on protecting everyone's future opportunities. Robert placed his hand on my shoulder. "Brittany, these people are professionals. They know how to handle situations like this. Situations like domestic violence. Situations like media overreaction," Susan called from the kitchen. "You should see some of these comments, honey. People are calling Marcus a monster based on 30 seconds of video. They don't understand the context." "What context makes it acceptable to slap your wife?" Tyler exploded from across the room. "There is no context, and I'm sick of everyone pretending there is." He stormed over to where I stood, his face flushed with anger and guilt. Brittany, they're planning to have Emma issue a public statement saying the whole thing was a misunderstanding. They want her to apologize for causing drama on her wedding day. The room fell silent except for the consultant's phone calls continuing in the background. You want the victim to apologize to her abuser? Robert's face darkened. Your sister is not a victim, Brittany. She's a married woman who needs to work through problems with her husband privately, not have every moment of her personal life dissected by strangers on the internet. Those strangers showed more concern for Emma's safety in 2 hours than you've shown in 2 years. Don't you dare lecture us about family loyalty, Susan snapped, closing her laptop. We've supported Emma through everything. We paid for this wedding, we welcomed Marcus into our family, and we've tried to help them build a stable life together. You've enabled an abuser because his family has money. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Jennifer Walsh cleared her throat diplomatically. Perhaps this family discussion should happen privately after emotions have cooled. My emotions are perfectly clear, thanks. Where is Emma right now? Tyler and I exchanged glances. He pulled out his phone and showed me a text thread. Tyler, Emma, are you okay? Do you need us to come get you? Emma, I'm fine. Marcus and I are working things out. Please don't make this worse than it already is. Tyler, that's not you texting, is it? The message had been left unread for 3 hours. She's at the Brown Palace with Marcus, Tyler said quietly. Hotel security won't let anyone up to their floor without permission from the guests. He's controlling her communication. This is a classic abuser tactic. Robert's face grew red. Marcus is protecting his wife from media harassment. Would you rather have reporters camping outside their door asking invasive questions? I'd rather have Emma safe and free to make her own choices. The argument escalated quickly from there. Susan defended their decision to support Emma staying married, arguing that divorce would bring more shame than enduring a difficult husband. Robert talked about Marcus's family construction business and how their financial support could benefit everyone. You sold Emma to the highest bidder, I said finally. We secured Emma's future, Robert shot back. Something you wouldn't understand since you've never prioritized financial stability. I prioritized my sister's safety, which apparently makes me the black sheep. That's when Tyler dropped the bomb that changed everything. I have video of Marcus threatening to hurt Mr. Whiskers. The room went silent. Mr. Whiskers was Emma's orange tabby cat adopted from a shelter 5 years ago when she'd been going through depression after college. That cat was her emotional support companion, the one living thing that had never judged or disappointed her. Tyler pulled up the video on his phone. The footage was shaky, obviously recorded secretly, but the audio was clear. Marcus's voice came through the speakers cold and menacing. If you embarrass me at the wedding, Emma, if you do anything to make me look bad in front of my family and friends, your precious cat is going to have an accident. Do you understand me? Emma's voice was barely audible. You wouldn't hurt him. Try me. I'll make it look natural. Cats fall out of windows all the time in high-rise buildings. Or maybe he'll eat something that doesn't agree with him. Accidents happen when people don't follow instructions. The threat was delivered in the same casual tone someone might use to discuss the weather. Marcus wasn't losing his temper or speaking in anger. He was calmly explaining how he would torture and kill a defenseless animal to maintain control over his wife. Susan's face went white. Robert sank into his recliner. Even the crisis management consultant stopped her phone conversation to stare. When did you record this? I asked Tyler. 3 weeks ago when they were planning seating arrangements at our house. I went to get drinks from the kitchen and heard them talking in the study. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know how wrong until tonight. Why didn't you show this to anyone sooner? Because I was afraid it would make things worse for Emma. I thought maybe after the wedding, when she felt more secure, she'd be ready to admit she needed help. The family meeting devolved into shouting after that. Susan broke down crying, admitting they'd been afraid of losing Emma entirely if they opposed the marriage. Robert ranted about how divorce would ruin the family's reputation and financial prospects. The consultant tried to manage the crisis while Tyler and I demanded they prioritize Emma's safety over their social status. That's when my phone rang with an unknown number. The caller ID showed only digits, but something told me to answer. Brittany. The voice was barely a whisper, but I'd recognize it anywhere. Emma, where are you? Bathroom. He's in the shower. I only have a minute. The noise in the living room faded as everyone realized who I was talking to. Emma, are you hurt? Do you need medical attention? I'm okay for now, but Brittany, he locked me in the hotel room. He took my phone and said if I talk to any reporters or family members about what happened tonight, things will get much worse. We're coming to get you right now. No, you can't. He has men watching the hallway. His family has connections everywhere. But Brittany, I hid something before the wedding just in case. Storage unit on South Broadway number 217. The key is behind the loose brick on the left side of the door frame. Emma, what's in the storage unit? Everything. Photos, recordings, my diary. All the proof you need that tonight wasn't the first time. The shower stopped running in the background and Emma's voice became urgent. Call Detective Sarah Chen at Denver Police. Tell her Marcus threatened Mr. Whiskers. She'll understand the pattern. And Brittany. Yeah. I wanted you at the wedding. I was going to ask you for help during the ceremony, but I lost my nerve when Marcus convinced everyone you hated me. I'm sorry I believed him. The line went dead as the bathroom door opened in the background. The living room erupted into chaos as everyone began talking at once. The crisis consultant was already on her phone, probably trying to figure out how to contain this new development. Susan was crying harder, finally understanding that Emma was in genuine danger. Robert sat in stunned silence, processing the reality that his financial security had come at the cost of his daughter's freedom. But Tyler was already grabbing his car keys. I know where that storage unit is. Let's go get the evidence. I looked around the room one last time at the family that had chosen money over Emma's safety, at the strangers who cared more about reputation than reality. When the police arrest Marcus, you'll all have a choice. You can keep protecting an abuser, or you can start protecting your daughter. Choose carefully because Emma will remember who stood with her when it mattered. As Tyler and I headed for the door, I realized this was the moment everything would change. Not just for Emma, but for all of us. The viral wedding video had exposed more than one moment of violence. It had revealed a family willing to sacrifice their daughter's well-being for financial gain and social status. Now it was time to prove that Emma wasn't alone anymore. Tyler and I drove through the empty Denver streets in silence, both lost in our own thoughts about what we might find at the storage unit. The address Emma had given us led to a sprawling complex of metal buildings on the south side of the city, the kind of place where people stored furniture during moves or kept belongings they couldn't fit in small apartments. Unit 217 sat in the back corner of the facility, away from the main road and security cameras. Just as Emma had described, there was a loose brick on the left side of the door frame. Tyler worked it free with his fingers, revealing a small hiding space where a silver key waited. The metal door rolled up with a screech that seemed impossibly loud in the quiet night. Tyler shined his phone's flashlight into the darkness, revealing a space about the size of a walk-in closet. What we found inside made my heart break for my sister all over again. Emma had created a methodical documentation of abuse that would have impressed any detective. Plastic storage boxes were labeled with dates and organized chronologically. The first box contained photographs that told a story no wedding album would ever include. Picture after picture showed bruises on Emma's arms, wrists, and shoulders. Some were clearly fresh deep purple and angry red. Others had faded to yellow and green, showing that the abuse had been ongoing for months. Emma had been careful to photograph herself from multiple angles, ensuring the bruises were clearly visible and couldn't be dismissed as shadows or makeup. One photo showed fingerprint bruises wrapped around her throat. Another captured a black eye hidden beneath concealer so skillfully applied that none of us had noticed it at family dinners. A third revealed bite marks on her shoulder that made me physically sick to see. But the written documentation was even more devastating. Emma's diary chronicled a pattern of escalating control and violence that began almost immediately after their engagement. The early entries were written in her familiar flowing handwriting, but as months passed, the words became shakier, more hurried, as if she'd been afraid of being caught documenting her experiences. March 15th. Marcus grabbed my wrist during dinner because I laughed at Tyler's joke about construction workers. He said I was flirting and embarrassing him. When I tried to pull away, he squeezed harder and said no one would believe me if I told anyone because everyone thinks he's perfect. April 2nd. He threw my phone against the wall because my college friend Jessica called during his favorite TV show. When I started crying, he said I was being dramatic and forced me to clean up the broken glass with my bare hands. He wouldn't let me get tweezers for the small pieces. April 28th. Marcus isolated me from my book club by telling them I'd been talking about their personal problems behind their backs. When I confronted him about the lies he pushed me so hard, I fell into the coffee table and bruised my ribs. He said if I told anyone, he'd make sure they all knew what a pathetic liar I was. The entries continued for months, each one documenting new methods of psychological and physical abuse. Marcus had convinced Emma that her family wouldn't believe her, that his family's money and connections made him untouchable, that she was lucky anyone would want to marry someone as damaged and needy as her. Most chilling were the entries about Mr. Whiskers. May 10th. Marcus threatened to hurt Mr. Whiskers if I didn't quit my part-time job at the bookstore. He said independent women made him look weak and that cats were easy to replace. When I refused, he held Whiskers upside down by his back legs until the cat was crying. He only stopped when I agreed to quit the next day. June 3rd. Found Mr. Whiskers hiding under the bed limping. Marcus claimed he must have fallen off something, but I saw him kick the cat when he thought I wasn't looking. I can't take Whiskers to the vet because Marcus controls all our money now and says veterinary bills are a waste. Tyler and I read through dozens of similar entries while our anger built into something close to rage. Emma had been systematically tortured and isolated while our family planned her wedding celebration. The audio recordings were even worse than the written accounts. Emma had hidden a small digital recorder in various locations around their shared apartment, capturing Marcus's verbal abuse when he thought no one could hear him. His voice came through the speakers calm and calculated, delivering threats and insults, with the casual cruelty of someone who enjoyed causing pain. "You're nothing without me, Emma. Your family only tolerates you because you're finally marrying someone successful. If you leave me, you'll have nothing and no one. Your sister hates you for stealing her boyfriend. Your parents are ashamed of how pathetic you've become. I'm the only person who could ever love someone as worthless as you." Another recording captured Marcus describing in detail how he would hurt Mr. Whiskers if Emma disobeyed him. "I'll start with his paws breaking one small bone at a time until you learn to follow instructions. Cats heal slowly so the pain will last for weeks. Every time you look at him limping around, you'll remember that his suffering is your fault." The recordings also revealed how Marcus had manipulated our family against me. "Your sister Brittany is jealous of what we have together. She's been trying to break us up since day one because she can't stand seeing you happy with the man she couldn't keep. That's why she asks so many questions about our relationship. She's gathering information to use against us. I listened to months of psychological warfare designed to isolate Emma from anyone who might help her escape. Marcus had been particularly focused on turning her against me correctly, identifying that I posed the biggest threat to his control. Tyler discovered the most damaging evidence in the final box. Brittany, look at this. He held up a manila folder labeled Marcus's Other Girlfriends. Inside were printed emails and social media messages from 3 different women, all describing similar patterns of abuse they'd experienced while dating Marcus. Jessica Williams from Oregon had dated Marcus 2 years before Emma met him. Her account described escalating violence that culminated in Marcus breaking her arm when she tried to leave him. She'd pressed charges, but Marcus's family had paid for expensive lawyers who convinced the court that Jessica was an unstable ex-girlfriend making false accusations. Rachel Stevens from Wyoming had a restraining order against Marcus that his family's lawyers had successfully overturned. Her testimony described psychological torture identical to what Emma was experiencing, including threats against her pets and isolation from friends and family. Sarah Martinez from Utah had reported Marcus to police for stalking and harassment after their breakup. The charges were dropped when Marcus's father made a large donation to the local police benevolent fund. Each woman had tried to warn future victims through social media posts and online forums, but Marcus's family had successfully buried their stories through legal threats and financial pressure. Tyler's phone rang as we finished reviewing the evidence. Detective Sarah Chen's name appeared on the screen. Tyler, I got your message about Emma Thompson and Marcus Williams. I've been investigating Mr. Williams for 6 months based on reports from his previous girlfriend in Oregon. Detective Chen, we have evidence. Lots of it. What kind of evidence? Photos, recordings, written documentation. Emma documented everything. That's exactly what we need. Mr. Williams is part of a pattern we've been tracking across multiple states. His family has been using money and legal threats to silence his victims for years. Detective Chen explained that Marcus was suspected in at least 7 cases of domestic violence across Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, and Oregon. His family's construction company was under federal investigation for using intimidation tactics against witnesses and victims. We've been building a case for months, but we needed a victim willing to testify. Most of his previous girlfriends were too frightened or financially pressured to cooperate. But this wedding video changes everything. How can we help Emma? First, we need to get her somewhere safe. Mr. Williams has connections throughout Denver, including some corrupt security companies that might be helping him keep her isolated. Second, we need her to make an official statement while the evidence is fresh. Detective Chen revealed something that made my blood run cold. Mr. Williams was planning to move Emma to a remote property his family owns in Wyoming immediately after their honeymoon. The property is 40 miles from the nearest town with no cell phone service and only one access road. Once he got her there, she would have been completely cut off from any help. He was planning to imprison her. That's exactly what he was planning. We have evidence that he's done this with at least 2 previous girlfriends. Both women were held at remote family properties for months before they managed to escape. Tyler and I looked at each other with growing horror. Emma's marriage wasn't just abusive. It was part of a calculated plan to kidnap and isolate her from anyone who might help her escape. Detective Chen continued, "We've been monitoring Marcus's communications. He's been researching legal ways to prevent wives from testifying against their husbands. He's also been looking into how to have someone declared mentally incompetent." The full scope of Marcus's plan was becoming clear. He hadn't just married Emma for control or money. He'd married her as part of a long-term strategy to legally imprison someone he could torture without consequences. "We're preparing to move on this tonight," Detective Chen said. "But we need Emma's cooperation. Can you get word to her that help is coming?" As we locked up the storage unit and headed back to my car, I realized we were in a race against time. Marcus had already demonstrated his willingness to escalate violence when his control was threatened. Now that his abuse had become public knowledge, he might do anything to prevent Emma from testifying against him. The viral wedding video hadn't just exposed one moment of violence. It had unraveled a criminal conspiracy that stretched across multiple states and involved years of systematic abuse and intimidation. Emma was no longer just a victim of domestic violence. She was a witness to a pattern of crimes that could put Marcus away for decades if we could keep her alive long enough to testify. Detective Sarah Chen met us at the Denver Police Department at midnight, her desk cluttered with files and coffee cups that suggested she'd been working on Marcus Williams for far longer than 6 months. She was a compact woman with sharp eyes and an air of competence that immediately put me at ease. "The evidence you've provided corroborates everything we suspected about Mr. Williams and his family," she said, spreading Emma's photos across her desk. "We've been investigating the Williams Construction Company for using intimidation tactics against domestic violence victims for 3 years. Your sister's case is the missing piece that ties everything together." Tyler and I sat across from her desk while she outlined their plan. "Hotel security at the Brown Palace is cooperating with us. They've confirmed that Mr. Williams has 2 private security guards stationed in the hallway outside their suite. The guards are employed by Blackwater Security, which is owned by Marcus's uncle and has a history of illegal surveillance and witness intimidation." She pulled up surveillance photos on her computer showing 2 large men in suits sitting in chairs outside the hotel room door. "We also have confirmation that Mr. Williams confiscated Emma's phone and has been controlling all communication with her family. The text messages you showed me tonight were definitely not written by Emma." Detective Chen explained that Marcus had made several critical mistakes that would help their case. First, he committed assault in front of 200 witnesses with multiple video recordings. Second, he's holding his wife against her will in a hotel room, which constitutes kidnapping under Colorado law. Third, his threats against the cat constitute animal cruelty and terroristic threatening. But the most important development came from Marcus himself. Mr. Williams has been drinking heavily since the reception and making statements to hotel staff about how his wife deserved what happened and how he's going to teach her respect once they get to Wyoming. The hotel management is concerned enough to cooperate fully with our investigation." The plan was complex but straightforward. Detective Chen would coordinate with hotel security to monitor Marcus's movements, while I posed as room service to access Emma. Tyler would wait in the lobby with backup officers in case Marcus tried to flee. The key is getting Emma to safety before Marcus realizes what's happening. If he feels cornered, he might escalate the violence. Detective Chen handed me a hidden recording device and explained how to activate it if Marcus became threatening. She also gave me pepper spray and a panic button that would bring immediate police response. "Remember, your job is to get Emma out of that room safely. Leave the arrest to us." The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt eternal. I wore a hotel uniform borrowed from a sympathetic staff member and carried a silver tray with coffee and pastries that might provide cover for my presence. The hallway was luxuriously decorated with thick carpets and crystal sconces, but the 2 security guards sitting outside room 1512 made it feel more like a prison than a palace. I approached them with practiced confidence, channeling every acting class I'd ever taken in high school. "Room service for Mr. and Mrs. Williams. They requested coffee and pastries for their honeymoon celebration." One guard looked me up and down suspiciously. "We didn't order anything." "The hotel management sent this complimentary service for all newlywed couples. It's part of their romance package." The guards exchanged glances. "We'll need to check with Mr. Williams first." "Of course. I'll just wait here while you verify." The first guard knocked on the door while the second kept watching me carefully. Marcus's voice came through the door slurred with alcohol and irritation. "What do you want?" "Room service, sir. Hotel sent up coffee and pastries." "We didn't order anything." "It's complimentary, sir. Part of the honeymoon package." There was a long pause before Marcus opened the door. He was still wearing his wedding tuxedo, but his bow tie was undone and his shirt was wrinkled. His eyes were bloodshot from drinking, and I could smell whiskey on his breath from 6 feet away. "Make it quick," he said, stepping aside to let me enter. The honeymoon suite was spectacular under normal circumstances, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Denver and furniture that probably cost more than my annual salary. But the atmosphere felt poisonous with tension and fear. Emma sat on the edge of the king-sized bed wearing her wedding dress, but the beautiful gown was now wrinkled and stained with tears. Her left cheek still showed the red mark from Marcus's slap hours earlier. When she looked up at me, her eyes widened with recognition and hope. "Where would you like the tray?" I asked Marcus, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just put it on the table and get out." I set the tray down and turned to Emma. "Congratulations on your wedding, ma'am. I hope you have a wonderful honeymoon." The coded message in my words was clear. Emma's eyes filled with tears of relief as she understood that help had finally arrived. "Thank you," she whispered. "That's very kind." Marcus was pouring himself another drink from the minibar and didn't notice the exchange. I moved closer to Emma and spoke quietly. "Detective Chen is waiting downstairs. Tyler is in the lobby. We're here to take you home." Marcus spun around at the sound of my voice. "What did you just say?" The recognition hit his face like a slap. "You're Emma's sister. The one who tried to ruin our wedding." "I'm taking Emma home, Marcus." "Like hell you are." He stepped between Emma and me, his posture suddenly threatening, despite his obvious intoxication. "Emma is my wife now. She goes where I tell her to go. Emma is a human being with rights, not your property." Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Emma gave up her rights when she married me. That's how marriage works. She belongs to me now." Emma found her voice then small but determined. "I want to go with Brittany." "You don't know what you want," Marcus snarled, turning toward her. "You never know what you want. That's why you need someone to make decisions for you." He reached for Emma's arm, but she pulled back instinctively. The movement seemed to trigger something violent in Marcus's alcohol-soaked brain. "Don't you dare flinch away from me," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I own you now. I can do whatever I want with you." That's when I activated the recording device Detective Chen had given me. "Marcus, let Emma leave with me and we can all walk away from this peacefully." "The only place Emma's going is Wyoming, where she'll learn to be a proper wife without interference from her pathetic family." He grabbed Emma's wrist and yanked her to her feet, causing her to cry out in pain. "You're going to apologize to me for embarrassing me tonight, and then you're going to promise to never speak to your sister again." "I won't do that," Emma said, surprising both Marcus and me with her sudden strength. Marcus's face darkened with rage. "What did you just say to me?" "I said I won't do that. I won't apologize for your behavior, and I won't promise to avoid my family." For a moment, Marcus seemed genuinely shocked that Emma was defying him. Then his expression shifted into something cold and calculating. "I think you've forgotten what happens when you disobey me, Emma. Maybe you need a reminder about what happened to Mr. Whiskers when you didn't follow instructions." "You didn't hurt him," Emma said, but uncertainty crept into her voice. Marcus smiled with genuine cruelty. "Check your email when we get to Wyoming. I sent you a video this afternoon while you were getting ready for the wedding. Your precious cat won't be waiting for you when you get home." Emma's face went white with horror and she started to collapse. I caught her before she could fall, fury building in my chest like a wildfire. "You sick piece of garbage," I said to Marcus. "You tortured an innocent animal to control her." I did whatever was necessary to teach my wife respect, and now I'm going to teach you the same lesson." Marcus moved toward me with violent intent, but that's when Detective Chen's voice came through my concealed radio. "Move in now. Suspect is threatening the victim and witness." The hotel room door burst open as 4 police officers stormed inside, weapons drawn. Marcus spun around in confusion and panic as Detective Chen followed them into the room. "Marcus Williams, you're under arrest for domestic violence, kidnapping, and terroristic threatening. You have the right to remain silent." Marcus tried to run for the balcony, but there was nowhere to go. As the officers cuffed him, he turned to Emma with pure hatred in his eyes. "This isn't over, Emma. My family has connections you can't imagine. I'll be out of jail before you make it home, and when I find you, you'll pay for this humiliation." "Actually, Mr. Williams," Detective Chen said calmly, "your family's connections are exactly why you're going to stay in jail for a very long time. We have warrants for your father and uncle as well. The FBI is raiding Williams Construction as we speak." The color drained from Marcus's face as he realized his family's criminal empire was collapsing around him. As the officers led Marcus away, Emma collapsed into my arms, sobbing with relief and exhaustion and grief for everything she'd endured. "I'm sorry, Brittany. I'm so sorry I believed his lies about you." "You have nothing to apologize for, Emma. You survived something terrible and now you're free." Detective Chen approached us gently. "Emma, I need to take your statement tonight while everything is fresh. But first, let's get you medical attention and make sure you're safe." As we left the hotel room together, Emma clinging to my arm like a lifeline, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Marcus was in custody. His family's criminal organization was being dismantled, and Emma was finally free to start healing. But the real work was just beginning. Emma would need time therapy and support to rebuild her life after months of systematic abuse. Our family would need to confront their role in enabling Marcus's violence, and Marcus himself would face justice not just for hurting Emma, but for years of crimes against multiple victims. The viral wedding video that had started this nightmare was about to become the key evidence that put a serial abuser behind bars for a very long time. 6 months after the wedding that shattered everything, I sat in a Denver courtroom watching Marcus Williams plead guilty to 17 charges, including domestic violence, kidnapping, assault, animal cruelty, and terroristic threatening. The man who had once seemed so charming and successful now looked small and defeated in his orange jumpsuit, his expensive lawyers unable to protect him from the mountain of evidence Emma and I had gathered. Judge Patricia Martinez listened to the prosecutor detail Marcus's crimes with the gravity they deserved. "Mr. Williams, your pattern of abuse spans 4 states and involves 7 documented victims over a period of 8 years. Your family's attempts to silence these women through intimidation and financial pressure represent a conspiracy that has caused immeasurable harm." Marcus received 4 years in state prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. His family's construction business faced federal charges for witness intimidation, and his father and uncle were awaiting their own trials for racketeering and obstruction of justice. But more importantly, 3 additional women had found the courage to come forward after Emma's story went public. Jessica Williams from Oregon, Rachel Stevens from Wyoming, and Sarah Martinez from Utah all testified about similar abuse they'd suffered at Marcus's hands. Their combined testimony ensured that Marcus would face consequences not just for hurting Emma, but for years of systematic violence against vulnerable women. The viral wedding video, which had initially seemed like the worst moment of Emma's life, had become the catalyst for justice that multiple victims had been denied for years. The hashtag #DieEmmaDeservesBetter had evolved into a broader domestic violence awareness campaign that helped other survivors recognize warning signs and seek help. Emma sat beside me in the courtroom holding my hand as Marcus was led away in shackles. She'd grown stronger over the past 6 months, but the healing process had been difficult and ongoing. She'd moved in with me immediately after the rescue, sleeping on my couch until she felt safe enough to get her own apartment. Mr. Whiskers thankfully had been unharmed despite Marcus's threats. He'd lied about hurting the cat as one final act of psychological torture. The first month had been the hardest. Emma had nightmares, panic attacks, and periods of deep depression as she processed the trauma she'd endured. She'd started therapy with Dr. Jennifer Santos, a specialist in domestic violence recovery, and joined a support group for survivors that met twice weekly at a community center downtown. Healing isn't linear, Dr. Santos had explained to both of us. Emma will have good days and bad days. The important thing is that she's safe now and has support from people who believe her story. Our family had undergone their own painful reckoning during Emma's recovery. Robert and Susan had initially struggled to accept their role in enabling Marcus's abuse, but family therapy sessions helped them understand how their priorities had put Emma in danger. "We thought we were protecting Emma's future," Robert admitted during one particularly difficult session. "We convinced ourselves that financial security was more important than her immediate happiness. We were wrong, and our daughter paid the price for our mistakes." Susan had perhaps the hardest journey of all. She'd spent so many years defining her worth through her daughter's achievements and social status that she'd lost sight of what actually mattered. "I wanted Emma to have the perfect wedding, the successful husband, the comfortable life I never had," she'd said through tears. "I ignored every warning sign because I was more afraid of disappointment than I was concerned about her safety." Both parents had made genuine efforts to change. Robert took early retirement and began volunteering with a domestic violence organization that helped survivors navigate legal processes. Susan joined a support group for family members who'd enabled abuse and started speaking at community education events about recognizing warning signs. Tyler had struggled with his own guilt about remaining silent for so long. "I knew something was wrong, but I was afraid that speaking up would make things worse for Emma," he'd confessed. "I'll never forgive myself for letting fear keep me quiet when my sister needed protection." He'd changed his major from business to social work and was doing his senior internship at a domestic violence shelter. "I want to help other families avoid the mistakes we made," he'd explained. "If I can prevent even one person from going through what Emma experienced, maybe I can live with my guilt." But Emma's transformation had been the most remarkable of all. The frightened, isolated woman who'd been trapped in an abusive marriage had gradually rediscovered her strength, intelligence, and independence. She'd returned to college to finish her interrupted degree in social work, inspired by her own experience and determined to help other survivors. "I want to become a domestic violence counselor," she told me one evening as we sat on my apartment balcony watching the sunset. "I want to help other women recognize that they deserve better than what I accepted for so long." Emma had also become an unexpected public speaker, sharing her story at community events and on social media platforms. Her honesty about the warning signs she'd missed and the isolation tactics Marcus had used helped educate people about the subtle ways abuse often begins. "People think domestic violence is always obvious," she'd said during a presentation at the University of Colorado. "They expect black eyes and broken bones from day one. But emotional abuse often comes first disguised as love and protection. By the time physical violence starts, victims have already been convinced they deserve it." The legal victory was satisfying, but the personal healing was what mattered most. Emma had rebuilt relationships with friends Marcus had isolated her from. She'd adopted a second rescue cat to keep Mr. Whiskers company. She'd started dating again slowly and carefully with a social worker named David who understood trauma and never pushed her to move faster than she was comfortable with. David makes me feel safe. Emma had told me about her new relationship. He listens to me, he respects my boundaries, and he's never tried to control or change me. I forgot what healthy love felt like until I met him. The media attention around our story had gradually faded, but the impact continued to ripple outward. The Denver Post had published a series of investigative articles about the Williams family's history of covering up domestic violence. The FBI's investigation into Williams Construction had uncovered labor violations, tax evasion, and witness intimidation spanning decades. Most importantly, other survivors had found their voices. The Domestic Violence Hotline in Colorado reported a 30% increase in calls following Emma's case, with many callers specifically mentioning that seeing her story had given them hope that escape was possible. As we left the courthouse after Marcus's sentencing, Emma and I walked into bright spring sunshine that felt symbolic of the new beginning we'd all fought so hard to achieve. "I have something to tell you," Emma said as we reached my car. "What is it?" "David proposed last night." My heart skipped with excitement and concern. "Emma, that's wonderful, but are you sure you're ready?" She laughed, and for the first time in years, the sound was completely genuine. "I'm sure, but we're going to have a long engagement, plan everything together, and make sure our relationship is built on mutual respect and communication. And this time, I want you as my maid of honor at a wedding that's actually worth celebrating." 2 years later, I stood beside Emma in a small garden behind David's family home, watching her marry a man who genuinely loved and respected her. The ceremony was intimate, with only 40 guests, focused on love and commitment rather than appearances and status. Emma wore a simple ivory dress she'd chosen herself, and her smile was radiant with genuine happiness. Tyler walked her down the aisle since Robert was still working to rebuild trust with his daughters. Susan sat in the front row, crying happy tears, having learned to express emotion without manipulation or guilt. The vows Emma and David exchanged were personal and meaningful promises to support each other through challenges while maintaining their individual identities and dreams. During the reception, Emma pulled me aside for a private moment. "I know this might sound strange, but I'm grateful for what happened with Marcus." "Emma, you don't need to be grateful for abuse." "I'm not grateful for the abuse. I'm grateful that surviving it taught me my own strength and showed me what real love looks like. I'm grateful that going through hell led me to David and to my calling as a counselor. I'm grateful that my worst experience became the foundation for helping other women find their freedom." She was right. Emma's nightmare had become her purpose, and her courage in facing Marcus had saved not just herself, but multiple other women who'd found the strength to escape their own abusers. As the celebration continued around us, I reflected on everything our family had learned through crisis and recovery. Real love builds people up rather than tearing them down. Family loyalty means protecting each other from harm, not preserving appearances that enable abuse. Speaking truth with courage can save lives even when it disrupts comfortable lies. The viral wedding video that had exposed Marcus's violence was now used in domestic violence education programs to help people recognize warning signs. Emma's story had become a powerful example that escape was possible and that survivors could rebuild their lives with proper support and resources. Our family had learned that financial security and social status meant nothing if they came at the cost of safety and dignity. We'd discovered that real strength comes from protecting the vulnerable, not from maintaining comfortable illusions. Most importantly, we'd learn that love should feel safe, not dangerous, and that anyone who makes you feel small or afraid doesn't deserve a place in your life. Emma's journey from victim to survivor to advocate had shown all of us that healing is possible, justice can prevail, and second chances can lead to happiness beyond what we'd ever imagined. Her courage in leaving Marcus and testifying against him had broken a cycle of abuse that had harmed multiple women across several states. The wedding that had started with violence and humiliation had ultimately led to healing justice and genuine love. Emma's story proved that even our darkest moments can become the foundation for building something better, and that speaking truth with courage can change not just our own lives, but the lives of countless others who need to know that escape is possible and that they deserve so much better. Thank you for joining me on this difficult but ultimately hopeful journey. If Emma's story resonates with you, please share it with others who might need to hear that they're not alone and that help is available. Like this video if you believe survivors deserve support and justice. Subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength through adversity and building healthier relationships. And comment below. Have you or someone you know ever missed the warning signs of abuse? What do you think families can do to better protect their loved ones from dangerous relationships? Your insights might help someone else recognize that they deserve love that feels safe, not scary.